Hey everybody, welcome back. It is our last slideshow of our last chapter here. So there will probably be some other videos and things that I make, but we're getting pretty close to the end here. Um, just to warn you, this one does have some awkwardness, so be prepared for that. We're going to be talking about the Clinton administration. That's the last administration in your textbook, and the last one we'll really be talking about or testing on anyway this year. So we'll just get started here. So in 1992, President Bush was starting to lose his popularity. This largely was due to a recession that happened. Remember, he was super popular after the Persian Gulf War and Desert Storm especially, but there was high unemployment and a recession that happened during this time period, and he didn't really fix it as well as people wanted him to. So the Democrat candidate, Bill Clinton, ends up winning the election. So he replaced George Bush as president. There's Bill getting sworn in. So one of the big things that Bill Clinton wanted to do was actually to institute a healthcare plan for the country. He promised people that he would do that. He basically believed that if the government controlled healthcare, then it would be cheaper for everyone. Sound familiar? Anyone? Obamacare? Yeah. The difference is that President Clinton did not get his to pass. Neither the Democrats or the Republicans really liked the idea. They didn't really care for that plan, and so neither of them pushed it through Congress, and it didn't get passed. So there goes one of his promises there, right? One thing that Clinton did that's still remained influential until fairly recently was increased trade with our neighbors. So he helped create a plan called NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which basically abolishes tariffs between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So we can trade those three countries just back and forth without having to pay any tariffs or anything like that. He was hoping that this increased trade would help the U.S. economy, which in some areas it did. You could argue that it actually ends up resulting in a lot of American jobs going to Mexico, especially, but it does also mean that more trade was happening with Mexico. We were sending them more of our stuff too, so it kind of ends up balancing out. And then in 1994, we move. The congressional elections happen. When Clinton was elected, there was actually a Democratic majority in Congress during his election. However, 2 years later, they do the congressional elections, and the Republicans actually ended up gaining the majority in both houses. This is partially because Clinton did not follow through on his healthcare plan, which was because of Congress. So things got shifted around in Congress a little bit. This is actually the first time that the Republicans had the majority of both houses since basically the 50s. So a lot of people also believe that the government was spending too much money and there were too many regulations, so they voted in Republicans, who generally tried to spend less and make fewer regulations. One big problem when the president has to deal with a Congress that is not the majority of his own political party, there tends to be a lot of conflict. There ends up not a lot happening most of the time. Very few presidents can convince a majority Congress that's the other party to go along with things or to help them out. And very few majority of the opposite party in Congress can convince the president to do things that they want to. So it usually ends up in a kind of a stalemate. And that's what happened with Clinton. He couldn't really do a whole lot because of that. Now we get to the uncomfortable part of this topic. President Clinton basically he cheats on his wife. There was an intern that worked for him, and there were some rumors that were spread around. People started asking questions and asked if he had an inappropriate relationship with this young lady, and he said that he had not had a relationship with her and that these things were lies, yada, yada, yada. Turns out there's proof that he did actually cheat on his wife with this young lady, meaning he lied in a federal investigation, which is a pretty big deal. So they ended up actually bringing up impeachment charges against him. He was saved from impeachment, from being, he was impeached, but he was saved from being removed from office by one vote in the Senate. One more vote, he would have been impeached. But he was only the second president in history to have impeachment charges brought up against him. We've had one since. But anyway, awkwardness. He was super lucky not to be impeached, one vote away. And anyway, super awkward. After this, we end up with President George W. Bush, the son of George Bush. And that's when 9/11 happens. We've talked about that a couple of times, so I won't go into any of that detail. But this is basically the end of where our curriculum goes to. So make sure you're doing the homework, take notes. Also make sure, I'm going to be posting a review tomorrow. We'll take our tests shortly, and then we'll start reviewing for the final. You're so excited. I know, I can tell. Awesome. We'll talk to you later, guys. Have a good rest of your day.